Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brighton Town Board meeting tonight, February 13th, 2019. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and on either side of me are my colleagues on the Town Board, and we all welcome you this evening. We really encourage people to be able to participate in our meetings, so on the table in the back of the room is the agenda for tonight's meeting and all of the supporting material that we have with us. But in addition, because we have our cable channel 1303, Community Access Cable, broadcasts our meeting and we live stream our meetings. There are people watching us on TV or on their computers. You can also follow along with all of the same material. Go to the town's webpage, townofbrighton.org, and you can click through to get the agenda and all of the supporting materials for tonight's meeting. We're going to start with the pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask Council Member Chris Warner to lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Chris. Please do. As we do each year during African American History Month in February, the Town Board has issued a proclamation honoring African American History Month. I'm going to read that. Whereas, by highlighting the successes and struggles of African Americans and the roles individuals and groups have played on the national and world stage, African American History Month promotes a more truthful telling of our country's history. Whereas, since its inception in 1976, African American History Month has become increasingly influential in educating our citizenry about the significant contributions African Americans have made to the social, scientific, and cultural growth of the United States. And whereas the 2019 theme for African American History Month is Black Migrations, which focuses on the early decades of the 20th century, when African Americans began large migrations, including migrations from southern farms to southern cities, and from the south to the northeast, midwest, and west. And whereas this mass migration resulted in a more diverse and stratified urban population amid a time of great social change, and brought about the emergence of African American industrial workers and entrepreneurs, while introducing new music forms like ragtime, blues, and jazz to those cities, along with new churches and religions. And whereas the Rochester area was enriched through the experience of Black migrations, and understanding and valuing the social and economic changes wrought by the struggle of African Americans for equality is important to our shared history, and I would say also to today's world. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and each of the members of our Town Council do hereby recognize February 2019 as African American History Month in the town of Brighton. We embrace the opportunity to broaden our knowledge and pay tribute to the African American experience, particularly concerning the migration of African Americans who have enriched the Rochester area. And this proclamation is signed this 13th day of February 2019 by myself, William Maley, Town Supervisor, and by my colleagues on the Town Board. And I think we've all, those of us on social media, have seen so much material about African American History Month. I'm particularly pleased to see the activity of the Black Student Union at Brighton High School and now at 12 Corners Middle School, all engaged in the community, in the school community, and in the wider community, and sharing the African American experience with their fellow students and with the community at large. So again, we will honor those significant accomplishments and the migration, which is a fascinating history. Thank you. Now, speaking of Brighton High School, recently I had the opportunity to meet some students actually from Brighton High School and 12 Corners Middle School, and one student who was not from Brighton. But I was just so impressed by these students and the work that they've done. I wanted to give them the opportunity to come in and talk to the community at our town board meeting. Fatma Sula and Miriam Selenli. Fatma is a senior at Brighton High School. Miriam is a junior at Brighton High School. And they're going to talk about Salam Magazine, which is a magazine, a very, very professional magazine aimed at children from about 6 to 12. So before I take away any more of your thunder, I welcome you both to come to the podium and tell us about this great, great magazine you've put together.
Hello, my name is Fatma Sula.
And my name is Miriam Selenli.
We are here today on Mr. Maley's invitation to introduce you to Salam Magazine. Salam Magazine started about 2 years ago when my mom, Esra Sula, who is sitting over there, gathered me and my friends together to think of something we could do for the American Muslim community. After brainstorming for a while, we thought of either translating a book from Turkish, opening a YouTube channel, or publishing a magazine for kids. And in the end, we all agreed to make a magazine, even though we didn't know anything about the publishing world. We gathered weekly to discuss things such as our mission, the content we could include, and what to name it. Then we distributed topics amongst ourselves. We planned to make the first issue as an Eid gift for kids, and it was not easy because we were writing all of the articles ourselves and also designing the pages on Microsoft Publisher. At the time, I had the role of being a designer, editor, and content creator. When we made the first issue and sold it, my mom asked us whether we wanted to continue, and we all said yes. The feeling of creating something new fascinated us. And over the past 2 years, my mom decided to take the magazine to a more professional level and has been working with a graphic designer and a few illustrators for the magazine. Children who purchase the magazine and would like to participate in it are also able to do so. My mom gives specific topics to some of them to write about, or they can send anything of their choice to us via email, and we will decide whether or not to include it. Each of the pages are reviewed by experts in their corresponding fields and are later edited by me and Mr. Mancini. This is our history and publishing process. Mariam will be telling you more about our purpose and future plans.
Okay, so when we first started our plan to make a magazine, we were surprised and also kind of disappointed that there weren't many Islamic magazines for children or any type of books or media that the children could read from. So that's how we kind of got inspired. We want to contribute something to the community. So our goal is to set a safe platform for children to safely express their cultural or religious identity, regardless of which religion they choose to follow. And also our goal is to contribute to the education and to the knowledge of kids about Islam, and also psychology, science, literature, and many other things. When we first started the magazine, we weren't really sure of what we were going to exactly do, since we didn't really know much about the publishing world. And to be honest, I wasn't that sure. I wasn't so sure whether it would turn out professional or not, but when we released the first magazine, we were all very proud and happy that it was, something that we all made and put our effort into. We published our 4th issue last December, and we will be publishing the 5th in early March. Although we have difficulty with sales now, we want to have our voice heard because we have been working very hard to promote our magazine. We have a website, and now we officially have a logo. We have recently created a yearly subscription system and have buyers outside of Rochester and even in some different states like New Jersey, California, and Texas. And we want to thank you for giving us a chance to speak here about our magazine. Most of us live in Brighton, and we wanted to contribute something to the community here. So we appreciate it. So basically, this is our first copy, our first issue of the magazine. It looks professional, but not as professional as our last copy. We made this on Microsoft Publisher, and it took us a while to kind of figure out how to use it. And all of the pages were made by us, our group, which has 8 people in it. So we have like crossword puzzles, and we have information about our prophet. We have jokes in here and poems. I personally write poems for the magazine and also travel pages about different countries. And Fatma edits.
Yeah. I also helped with like designing this magazine because we didn't have a designer at the time. And like, it's not perfect, but I tried my best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It turned out pretty nice. So when it first came out, like, we couldn't believe that it actually was an actual magazine. We really had no hope that it would like continue this far. So when we did choose to continue with our second magazine, which looks way more professional than the first one, as you guys can see here, we still continued with Microsoft Publisher, but we had more writers and authors in here, so we all just kind of continued with our duties of writing poems and making crossword puzzles and everything. So, and when the Turkish kids in the Turkish Cultural Center, when they heard about the magazine, they also wanted to participate and contribute something to the magazine as well, so they also have their works in here.
Yeah. And then in the third magazine, there was a large gap between the second and third magazine, like nearly a year. And during that time, my mom like finally decided to make this, like to definitely push through with this. And so she ended up like working with a designer, and that's why it looks much better. And so we just, we had comics pages too, because she also started working with an actual artist instead of just using free pictures from Google. But yeah, right now we're continuing on. And in the fourth magazine, we also continued with the designer. And this one is probably the best one so far.
Yeah, we officially have the logo.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, that's our logo. And yeah, we also have a yearly subscription plan, which Mariam mentioned earlier, if you go on our website. So yeah.
And yeah, that's our magazine.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us here.
Yeah.
Wow. Just wow. And I think now everybody knows why when I met with you, I just came away. I know when I was in high school, I was trying to decide whether to translate books, set up a YouTube channel, or publish a magazine. You just exemplify what Brighton is all about, what Brighton schools are all about, your creativity, your professionalism, your mother, you're just wonderful, wonderful. The way you've all worked together. As you know, I have for many years come out to the Turkish Cultural Center and participated in many of your activities, whether iftar dinners or other interfaith social dinners. But I'm just speechless at what a great job you've done and all of your fellow students. You're all talented, poised, and by the way, I think Mark Zuckerberg didn't start until he was in college. So be careful. You know, this, I just can't say enough. Thank you for coming in on a tough, snowy night.
We appreciate
and congratulations, and I look forward to seeing issue 5.
Yes, hopefully it'll
Early
be coming
March.
out early March.
Great.
So, and everything's on our website, salammagazine.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, any questions from anybody up here? Well,
No, I'm just overwhelmed. I looked at that magazine, and what a professional job. Terrific, terrific.
Thank you.
And you answered my question as you were walking away. The web address is salammagazine.com.
Yes, salammagazine.com.
Look forward to future subscriptions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, we will now start the open forum. As we always do at the start of the meeting, we have our open forum, which is an opportunity for people, whether or not they live in Brighton, to address the board about whether matters on the agenda or other matters of concern to you. Once we open it, if you would just raise your hand and I will recognize you and come up to the podium. If you would state your name and address, please. But also, as I said earlier, we have people watching us on our live stream or on cable channel 1303. So if you would like to call in, you may do so at 303-3060. That's 303-3060, and someone will take your call. If you are deaf or hard of hearing, we do have a TDD line. That's 784-5205. Again, our TDD line, 784-5205. But before I open the open forum, I do want to note that if you are watching us live on our Spectrum cable channel 1303 and you experience any difficulty with the transmission, you can call Spectrum at 756-5000. That's 756-5000. And I would also note, in case of an emergency, you will hear the emergency alarm system. And if the alarm goes off, please exit the building immediately, either through the door to my right, marked with the exit sign. If you go out that door, turn right, go down the stairs, out the rear door of Town Hall and away from the building. Or you can go out either one of the double doors in the back of this room, through the lobby, out the main front door, down the steps, and away from the building. We don't expect that to happen, but you never know. Okay, the open forum is now open. I would also note that if you are here for the public hearing, either of the public hearings that we have tonight, one concerning our firearms storage local law, as well as our proposed parking restrictions for Elmwood Avenue at Wintergreen Way, local law. And if you would like your comments on the record for either one of those, please wait until we call the public hearing. And just one more quick acknowledgement. We do have another group of students here tonight from Writing and Reporting 2 class. Did I get that right, or was it Reporting and Writing? From RIT. So welcome to the journalists, perhaps, of our future. I mean, what a perfect night for you to be here. So with that, the open forum is now open. Would anybody like to address the board? Judy.
Judy Schwartz, 179 Ashbourne Road. Just a reminder again about Bright Neighbors United Supper on March 3rd at 6 at Buckland Park. Reservations are due by the 22nd of February. And Sebastian Morandi, one of the lost boys from Sudan, will be doing the program. It's a potluck. The food is good, the people are great, and the programs are always very interesting. I forgot to say 2 weeks ago that if you're listening to this, feel free to call me, 585-442-5111, and I will see that you get a reservation form. So I hope we get a lot of people. I have no idea what the weather's going to be. I don't even think we would know the day before, but we have had all kinds of evenings, and we've never had to skip a meeting. So it's March 3rd, and I hope to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. We have this many people on a night like this. Yeah, we'll get people. People will be there, I have no doubt, because it is a fun night. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during our open forum? Hearing none, then we will move on with the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye, and can I have a motion to approve and file the meetings for the town board meetings held on January 2nd, our organizational meeting, and January 9th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Public hearings. We do have 2 public hearings tonight. The first is on the proposed firearm storage local law. I know I spoke with Charan. There apparently was an issue with the publication of the legal notice for this public hearing. So we are going to hold the public hearing anyway. We are also going to schedule a second public hearing at our next board meeting on February 27th. And I anticipate that we will take action on the law at that time. All of your comments tonight will be included in the record of that second hearing. So you can feel free to speak tonight. You may, but you won't have to come back on the 27th, but we always welcome you to come back. So with that caveat, I declare this public hearing to be open. Is there anyone that would like to address the proposed firearm storage and safety? And well, let's have Chris talk first.
If I might, Bill, I was going to suggest that.
Yeah.
This is a proposal, I think, that just makes common sense. And if I might just read the operative section of the statute so we can hear what we're talking about requiring. And thank you, Ken, for your hard work and draftsmanship here. No person who owns a firearm or is in custody of a firearm or is in possession of a firearm shall store or otherwise leave such firearm out of his or her immediate possession or control without first having securely locked such firearm in an appropriate safe storage depository or rendered it incapable of being fired by use of a locking device appropriate to that firearm. Also, there are definitions for locking devices and storage facilities. And then further, a person who owns or who is a custodian or is in possession of a firearm which becomes missing, lost, or stolen shall report to the Brighton Police Department immediately after detection that a firearm is missing, lost, or stolen. So simply, if a firearm is in your possession, if it's not in your immediate area of control, it's to be locked. It's that simple. And also, if it goes missing in your household, immediately call the police and advise them of that fact. I've prepared a letter to the town board, which, if I may just simply read, and then I'll enter it into the record. Our historic constitutional right to bear arms has rapidly expanded to the point that guns have become of the essence of our national culture. The overwhelming number of guns and the number of households with guns has multiplied manyfold and has proven to be a threat to the safety of our communities and, most importantly, our children. For good or ill, guns will always be a part of our national character. Yet we can and must act to promote responsible gun ownership to reduce the risk that they pose. To this end, I propose that we enact this local law to address safe storage and reporting of missing guns. This will mandate that when guns are not in the immediate control of their owner, that they be properly secured and that missing guns be immediately reported to the police. The reason for this is in the statistics, which are stunning. A gun in the home is 43 more times likely to be used to kill a friend or family member than a burglar or a criminal. 43 times. Gun death rates are 7 times higher in states with the highest compared with the lowest household gun ownership, and the risk of homicide is 3 times higher in homes with firearms. More than 500,000 firearms are lost or stolen from private residences every year. Now, with respect to children, 1/3 of U.S. homes with children have guns. That's amazing to me. 4.6 million U.S. minors live in homes with at least one loaded and unlocked firearm. 78 children and young adults under the age of 21 are killed or injured by guns each day in the U.S., of which 12 will be fatal. To age 24, there are 18 fatalities each day. 89% of accidental shooting deaths among children occur in the home. And among gun-owning parents who reported that their children had never handled their firearms at home, 22% of those children, questioned separately, said that they had handled those firearms. 73% of children aged 9 and under living in homes with guns reported knowing the location of their parents' firearms, and 36% admitted that they had handled them. Of homes with children and firearms, 55% were reported to have one or more firearms in an unlocked place, and of those, 43% reported keeping those guns without a trigger lock. And children as young as 3 years old are strong enough to fire a handgun. 3 years old. That would be my grandson. And youth suicide is the most disturbing risk, because guns are the most effective mode of suicide, almost always successful. Generally, keeping a firearm in the home increases the risk of suicide by a factor of 3 to 5 and increases the risk of suicide with a firearm by a factor of 17. In 2010, 62% of gun deaths were suicides, and 50% of all suicides are committed with a firearm. Among teens living in homes with guns, 40% of those with serious suicide risk factors and roughly 40% who have attempted suicide in the past year reported to have easy access to the guns in their homes. And of youths who committed suicide with firearms, 82% obtained the firearm from their home, usually a parent's firearm. When storage status was noticed, about 2/3 had been stored unlocked, and of the remainder, the youth knew the combination or the key was kept, or broke into the cabinet. And to me, the most striking statistic is the fact that Massachusetts is the only state in the nation that has a similar storage requirement. Of youth suicides in Massachusetts, guns are used in just 9% compared to 39% of youth suicides nationally. And the overall suicide death rate among youth in Massachusetts is 35% below the national average. Though safe storage and reporting may have little impact on the national tragedy and disgrace of horrific mass shootings, it will have a tremendous impact on the majority of gun deaths that result simply from irresponsible gun ownership. Let us join Massachusetts, and in New York, let's join the city of Rochester and Albany and the county of Westchester, and too few municipalities elsewhere in enacting safe gun storage and reporting legislation. We can wait no longer for our state to act. Now, I might add, with respect to that latter aspect, is that the state has acted and taken further action. In New York State, there is a requirement that anyone who resides with a felon who is prohibited from possessing a gun, they must store it in this fashion. However, that's just if you're living with a felon. That is not going to be a large number of people. An important bit of legislation, I'm sure, but beyond that, they've expanded it now that if you live in a household that has a child under the age of 16, you have similar storage requirements. This does not address the real issue, this terrible issue of teen suicide up to age 16. And I've spoken with our state legislators, and they've indicated that it's just simply a matter of politics, that it can't be more broadly extended throughout the state. So, and I've also confirmed with our state representatives that we are free to enact our own legislation here in the town of Brighton. And I believe that we should do so. I appreciate very much the help that the chief has given me and the input of the other members of the board on this legislation, and I'm very pleased to hear the encouragement they've given. Chief, do you want?
I do, but I was speaking to somebody that's going to address some of the things. So rather than take the thunder, I'll go last, if that's all right.
Thank you.
And I would just note on your last point, Chris, and thank you for doing some really detailed research, pulling together what are chilling statistics. But on the issue of whether we have the legal authority to do this, I know the Corporation Counsel's office from the City of Rochester also reviewed and rendered their opinion that we do have that, and you provided that to us, and thank you for that. But it is very clear that we do have the legal authority to do this. So with that, is there anyone who would like to address the town board on this proposed local law? Sharon?
Thank you so much for the invitation to join you tonight. My name is Charon Sattler-LeBlanc. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And I'm also here with 3 of our members tonight from your community, your neighbors of Brighton. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Many of you know Herman, and he's been very active in the community. Dr. Kelly Camish and Alicia Stone-Jinks. So volunteers and neighbors here as well. I'm also a volunteer with Moms Demand Action because I'm also a survivor of gun violence. So I very much commend the work of Councilman Werner, is that right? And I very much commend the leadership of the town of Brighton for bringing this legislation. As I've challenged many of our leaders, legislation alone does not change things, but what it can do is it can help us shape culture. You're codifying what's important to our community. And you did a beautiful job sharing all the statistics that we often share. One thing that you shared was a 3-year-old is strong enough to pull the trigger on a firearm. So often we see in the news as a toddler who fights a firearm and shoots themselves in the face. And the reason they do that is because their index finger is not strong enough to pull the trigger, but their thumb is. So they turn the handgun around and use their thumb to pull the trigger. That's why we see so many of these toddlers who are hurting themselves and killing themselves. The impact of safe storage, particularly on reducing the risk of teens taking their lives. We know how impulsive we can be at that age, that a temporary crisis can feel like it's the end of the world, and the presence of a firearm can actually make that a reality. So safe storage is going to save many lives. And the challenge that we have is we know that these suicides are happening. Our law enforcement, unfortunately, knows very well. They respond. And the only thing we hear about in the community is that counselors will be made available. And there's so much shame for those families that they couldn't save their child, that we don't hear about it. So you will be saving many lives, so thank you. The other piece I just wanted to talk about with Moms Demand Action, certainly we're a legislative advocacy group, but we're really about education for our community, and we have to work neighbor to neighbor. And one of the campaigns that we have, and we are already working to do a presentation, I believe we're targeting March 3rd, at 2 o'clock as a part of the winter market. Details to be finalized. But we'll be doing a presentation on the Be Smart campaign. And really what we do is Be Smart for Kids talks about safe storage, modeling responsible behavior, learning to ask. You know, if you have a child going to someone's house to play, you would ask, do they have a pool? Do you have a dog? Do you have a peanut allergy? Can I bring a snack? And do you have firearms, and how are they stored? And so it's huge for us to help communities have this conversation and feel safe to ask the question. R stands for recognizing risk, and that talks about our teenagers and our young adults. Again, the presence of a firearm in a suicide attempt will make it a very lethal and likely result in death. And finally, T stands for talking about it. So again, the program that we have really works on empowering our communities and neighbors to keep each other safe. And that's probably one of the best and most effective ways that we can keep each other safe. So again, this legislation is going to save the lives of your community. It's going to help protect your law enforcement who have to respond to some high-risk situations. My family was impacted by domestic violence, and I know that can be some of the most dangerous situations that our law enforcement responds to. So again, my deep, heartfelt gratitude to you, and please know that you have a small army of volunteers who are ready, and we're already scheduled to help educate in your community. I have a few of these brochures if you'd like to share them, and I can pass some of these around.
Please.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, and been working with our rec department and Sue with the winter market, and yeah, Sunday, March 3rd at 2 o'clock is the time that we are targeting, and talking with the school district and some other groups about publicizing that and making sure that people know that it's happening, and make sure we get some good attendance for at least the first meeting. Who knows, maybe the first of others to come.
And if I might also share that you can certainly ask for us to, we'll come to your home and do it in your living room. We'll do it to your coach. We'll share this program with your coaches. If you've got a community, a faith community, you know, you just want to get a couple of your neighbors and some slices of coffee cake, you know, we're there. So just give us a call and we will bring the program out to you.
Thank you, Sharon. I've heard your longer presentation in different forms twice, first in Pittsford actually, and then just this past week as part of the Jewish Federation's legislative luncheon. And you have really captured at obviously the statistics, but what you've really captured the human impact of this issue, and I am so appreciative of the time that you put in with your message, which I know is not an easy message, and yet it's an important message, and so I want to say thank you for sharing it here and sharing it, you know, throughout the community.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on this matter during the public hearing? Chief, yes.
Dan, are you working with Councilperson Werner on the concept of the law and the context of the law? I had talked about some information I was gathering that perhaps Albany would look at a more stricter, stringent version, and I asked that the town defer a little bit to the state to see if they were going to adopt the law. They didn't do that. And I support your efforts here, and I certainly support the law as written. I know we've had a number of conversations as to what we should see in the law. I asked for an immediate reporting of the loss of a firearm from an investigative standpoint that'll allow us to work quicker with that. One of the things that we do when a firearm, whether it's a long gun or a handgun, is missing, we get that information out through our networks to our colleagues to be aware that there is a firearm that is missing. So the expediency of reporting it is important to us. And then the context of the law, it's an unclassified misdemeanor. And, as with any law, the concern is, are the police going to go door to door actively trying to enforce this law? And the answer is no. We hope that there's compliance. I know we worked through a situation in one of our parks, and we properly posted. I received some feedback from members that felt it's a violation of the Second Amendment. It's clearly written in our law that we can dedicate areas that firearms are to be prohibited in. I do not feel that this law is a violation of the Second Amendment. It basically requires responsible gun ownership, which I think anybody that legally owns firearms would support wholeheartedly. As to the requirement for locking and the locking device, are they expensive? You buy a new handgun. We just recently upgraded our handguns for the department. It's federally mandated that a locking device come with your handgun. It's not, to my knowledge, it's not required with a long gun when you purchase a long gun from a retail establishment. There are waiting periods and there's certain requirements, but as far as the locking mechanism with a long gun, I'm not 100% sure that that's required in federal law. We have a quantity of these locks. It will render a handgun, it will render a long gun disabled as per the content of the law and the context of the law. You can simply put it through the channeling devices and it prevents firing of firearms. We have 125 of them at the police department. We'd be happy to give them. It's part of an initiative called Product Child Safe. In it is a brochure that talks about safe storage. It talks about the different levels of storage, gun safes, actual physical safes that are, and how to affix them to your property, as well as the locking devices. And you know, I support it. Hopefully, you know, we won't know the tragedies that this prevents, but you know, for somebody to say that this is a violation of my constitutional right, I disagree with them all day long. And I can share with you examples in our community where gun owners thought they were acting responsibly, and in my opinion, were acting irresponsible by leaving a handgun unlocked in an unsecured in an unlocked vehicle, only to report it to the Brighton police and say that my handgun was stolen. My first course of conduct is I'll take that report and give the report to an issuing judge that issued the pistol permit, and I'll talk about a decorum of recklessness. We now have the ability to bring criminal charges against a gun owner that acts irresponsibly, and that's in the context of public safety. So job well done on this.
Thanks, Chief. And in talking about storing in homes, one of the things that I found, well, there's nothing amusing about this, but nonetheless, the Santa syndrome, that folks feel that they're storing their weapons, their firearms, in a safe place, and they tend to put them exactly the same place that they hide the Christmas presents. I found my Christmas presents as a child, and the top of your closet in your master bedroom is not a safe storage place. It's very important to lock these guns up. So thanks, Chief, and thanks for making those available to the community.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during this public hearing? Anyone on the board?
I just wanted to thank Chris and Ken and the chief for all of the research and really implementing this matter of public health. It's really important, and I'm proud to have you as colleagues to implement this legislation.
Brighton's always proud to lead the way, and I think we do.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for the thorough research and the passionate drive to push this forward. I'm looking forward to voting.
Chime in as the parent of a young person who's entering that mushy-brained stage, and whose friends are equally impulsive. I think it's a reassurance to the community that we've got this added level of smart protection. So thank you for the good work.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Hearing none, then I declare this public hearing to be closed, and I'm going to move directly, unless the town attorney has something to say. Ken?
There will be a second public hearing on
Correct.
this firearms storage law at our next town board meeting, February 27th, also starting at 7 p.m. And I would just ask the supervisor and the board to preserve the testimony from the public hearing just held to be incorporated into the transcript of the public hearing to be held on February 27th.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you. And the perfect segue, can I have a motion, Chris, to set that second public hearing?
Bill, I
date
move
on
that
this?
we set public hearing for February 27, 2019 for this proposed firearm storage and safety local law and adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll just add that with my apologies, the technical difficulty which resulted in the notice not going out. I'm not entirely sure what went wrong, but my usual technical competence escaped me at this one, and so my apologies, and for everyone that came. Actually, I look forward to the vote next meeting.
Dan, if it gives us another time to broadcast this message, and
But
that's
does-
the important.
and that's the silver
Giving
lining.
the message to
Yes.
the committee what our expectations are and their
Wh-
responsibility.
Which is, of course, why I did that.
You'll hand it down to Dan.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as we talked about that, obviously this was read in, but we'll also have the hard copy included as part of the record of the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
And Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Next, we have a public hearing on a proposed local law.
Actually, we're just setting this public hearing.
I'm sorry,
for
yes, we are
27th.
setting the public hearing also on February 27th for proposed parking restrictions on Edgewood Avenue, 200 feet either side, north and south of the Wintergreen Way intersection. Can I have a motion, Christine, on that public hearing, please?
Thank you. I move that we set a public hearing date for February 27th, 2019 for the proposed parking restrictions for Edgewood Avenue at Wintergreen Way, setting local law per the resolution number 8, per the letter from Mike Guyon, Commissioner of Public Works.
Can I have a second, please? And Mike, if you want to just talk briefly about.
Real quick, we've had a situation where cars are parking very close to an intersection. The cars are parking close enough that as people try to leave the intersection, it's blocking their sight distance and creating an unsafe situation along Edgewood Avenue. The law that we're asking will prohibit cars from parking within 200 feet of the intersection, providing adequate sight distance for people to enter and exit that intersection.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just want to make sure that we have the local law drafted correctly in terms of its, I think the distances are correct. The direction, I just want to make sure that we have that.
Yeah, it is the west side of Edgewood, and it is 200 feet north of Edgewood down to 200 feet south of Edgewood.
Yep.
Okay, we have motion and a second. If there's no further comment, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Communications, can I have a motion to receive and file the one communication we have this evening?
So moved.
Second.
We have New York State Comptroller DiNapoli. His annual report on local governments, one of the several bureaus of the Comptroller's office, is oversight of local governments in the state, towns, villages, and cities. And the State Comptroller provides a number of resources, compiles a lot of data, and also each year for about the last 5 years analyzes the fiscal strength of each municipality in the state and publicly evaluates that. I'm pleased to be able to say that each year Brighton has been found to be in very strong fiscal condition, not anywhere close to any of the, even the lowest level of concern about fiscal strength. But I think it's a valuable tool having the comptroller there doing that analysis. They are a resource. They issue opinions on various matters of state law that are very helpful. I know we all refer to them periodically. So thank you to the comptroller, and we'll receive and file that report. We have that motion and second. If there's no further commentary, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Let me scroll through that rather lengthy report here. Okay. Committee reports. Community Services Committee. Robin.
Thanks, Bill. The Community Services Committee met this morning, February 13th at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside School, 220 Idlewood Road. And among the items that we discussed were in communications via email. Rod Bailey wrote to request that the town board adopt a resolution in support of Representative Morelli becoming a co-sponsor of H.R. 763, the carbon fee and dividend bill currently before the House of Representatives. It was noted in discussion that the town already has a commitment to clean energy, as evidenced by its adoption of a climate change resolution in the past year. So the town does, though the town does support the concept of carbon fee and dividend, we strongly believe that the proposed law needs to include language for municipalities to benefit from dividends. And before I go on further, I do want to thank Councilmember Corrado for conducting the meeting this morning in my absence. I had a conflict, and thank you so much for pinch hitting.
It was my pleasure. We missed you, but you had us well prepared.
And then among items of continuing business among park issues, there was a discussion of Corbett's Glen and Postcard Falls access, and including the original intent of the park as it relates to designated access points to the falls. Currently, we're monitoring the situation to determine how the recently installed perimeter fencing impacts access points to the falls. The perimeter trail fence was installed in the late fall, so we feel it's important to provide some time to see how well it's working to keep pedestrians on the trail at key points of erosion. This issue will be reassessed as the season progresses. In addition, we discussed projects and purchase orders that are being put together for the next year, or for this current year, including, for the new year, including replacement doors at Buckland Park and lattice work repair at the 12 Corners gazebo. In addition, playground equipment replacing and planning in terms of budgeting is underway for Meridian Center Park play structures. The park superintendent is exploring a potential grant opportunity with playground equipment manufacturers for new playground equipment that will meet ADA requirements for accessibility. In addition, we discussed Arbor Day tree planting at Buckland Park. That's a coordinated opportunity with the Parks Department and the Lorax Club, and that's in efforts to keep Brighton a Tree City, USA. Under items of recreation programs, we discussed that the Indian Landing School has been secured as an alternate location for Council Rock Summer Camp. Summer camp planning is underway for all camp locations, and we're making adjustments where needed due to Brighton Central School District's instruction constraints in the upcoming years. Increased program development is underway at the Buckland House, including implementing a docent program in conjunction with Mary Jo Lanphier, our town historian. The goal is to have programming in place this spring and to have the house opened regularly on one Sunday a month to start, and long-term to have it in use more of as a multi-use space for art exhibits and meetings in conjunction with school and community groups. Was noted that some minor interior improvements are needed to make the space function better as a multi-purpose facility, including an art hanging system and some folding tables and chairs in addition to other miscellaneous items. So the town is currently seeking funding sources to support those needed improvements. Our after-school program open houses have been scheduled to drive attendance to our child care programs, one was held last week and had 2 families in attendance, and the next is scheduled for February 26th and has 6 interested parties. The winter weather impacts our programming this time of year and keeps our department busy when cancellations to school and other programming is necessary. So we want to give a shout out to our park staff who's done a wonderful job in keeping our parking lots and sidewalks clear during these winter storms to allow safer access to our buildings for all participants. We also had an update on our winter farm market. Thus far, the project has incurred about $6,000 in net change orders, which is pretty good. We're pretty close to being on budget. Some cost savings have occurred due to the absence of asbestos in the roofing shingles, but then those were balanced out by unexpected costs due to a lack of compacted base under the concrete floor that's being replaced currently. An exterior color palette was reviewed for the property, and we are concerned with security on the property on an ongoing basis as future phases are completed and the property is not in regular use currently. The highway department has been working on site to remove a pre-existing pile of debris, and they've been grading the area to keep water from the foundation of the building. We also had an update on our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Committee. We did receive 4 proposals for consultant services, 3 of which were budget conforming. We're currently in the process of scheduling and conducting interviews with the top 3 vendors, and we hope to conclude by the end of the month. The town board was hoping to approve that consultant by the February 27th meeting, and we're hoping to begin meetings finally in March, April timeframe. So we're very excited about that. We're getting so close. Update to community choice aggregation. A group RFP among municipalities has been developed, and the final RFP has been distributed for town board review. And there have been 3 firms that approved on the state level with the PSC for administering CCA. So we're hoping to get that RFP out soon. An update to the Beautification Committee. Our committees convened for the first time this past Monday, February 11th. We'll be initially meeting on second Mondays of every month at 8 a.m. in the lower level conference room here at Town Hall. In the future, we do anticipate that meetings will be held more on a quarterly basis, but given this time of year and in preparation for our clean sweep and spring recycling events that will be transitioned to the Beautification Committee, we will be convening more frequently over the next few months. We're working on setting up the web page for the group, and this initial meeting we had 5 of the 7 members attend, which is a quorum, which is always a good thing. An update to our Brighton Safe Streets for All community group. Pace car materials are going to be distributed to the Brighton Safe Streets for All group, and our target public launch will coincide with National Bike to School Day, Wednesday, May 8th. In addition, our Sustainability Oversight Committee did write a letter to the New York State DOT regarding the potential for a pedestrian scramble, which is a type of traffic configuration that deconflicts traffic, automobile traffic and pedestrian traffic at crosswalks. We did receive a reply to the letter, and the department would like to conduct a traffic study to determine the feasibility of that type of pedestrian implementation. Likewise, the Monroe County DOT is receptive to the idea of conducting a traffic study in the area. And so we're looking forward to that data-driven data-driven way to definitively help determine the potential impacts for pedestrian scramble. We're also requested in Public Safety Committee a speed limit review of the 12 Corners area with the county and state DOT. We do anticipate our council member Under Corner to have space at our outdoor farmers market this year, and I'll be meeting with Sue Gardner-Smith to discuss that further. And in new business, I did have a meeting this morning with the Let's Get Real Municipal Alignment team at the City of Rochester. The meeting was with one of our municipal partners in Pittsford, and also Letitia Dissette, who's with the Real Committee at the City of Rochester. And we met basically to discuss ways that Brighton and its IDEA Committee and community can collaborate in efforts at racial equity within the city and surrounding communities. We discussed 8 ways in which Brighton could assist with community-wide efforts. And the plan is to concurrently lay out a scope of a project to prepare work plans to achieve operational impact for racial equity across the board. Among the efforts we specifically discussed, we're building a coalition to create media accountability, helping to develop a racial equity playbook, replicating and scaling community empowerment activities, and taking part in a coalition to implement structural change in civil service exam and process to make sure that those programs are equitable. In addition to that, we discussed the Brighton Black History mobile display, which is something that we're coordinating with Mary Jo Lamphere, the town historian, and one of the community groups, CURB, Community Uprooting Racism in Brighton. We're discussing potential themes for those displays. We discussed potential encompassing of the migration post-Reconstruction and Brighton's role in those migratory patterns. And there was this suggestion, I think it's a very good one, that we incorporate Asa Dunbar's role in the founding of Brighton. And finally, under new items, we discussed the Deaf and Hard of Hearing survey that our Councilmember Corrado and also Chris Hildebrand of IDEA Committee will be holding a meeting of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing community members and all stakeholders to learn more about ways in which town government can be more inclusive. Those efforts will be coordinated with the IDEA Committee, and some date to be determined sometime in March, we hope. And that concludes our committee report. Our next meeting of the Community Services Committee will be on Wednesday, March 20th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside School, 220 Idlewood Road. As always, members of the public are encouraged to attend. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Robin. Jason, Finance and Administrative Services Committee.
The Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Tuesday, February 5th. Each of the items that were discussed in the committee meeting appear on tonight's agenda. In addition, we did have a matter of discussion with our auditors. Tom Zuber and Melissa Dewar from the Raymond F. Wager CPA Division of Mangel, Metzger and Barr Company addressed the Finance and Administrative Services Committee regarding the process for the upcoming audit for the 2018 town fiscal year. The discussion touched on several subject areas, such as the scope of services, management responsibilities, audit procedures, internal control and compliance, fiscal stress monitoring, and Government Accounting Standards Board pronouncements and other topics. Risk assessments were also discussed related to cyber risk and the best practices involving testing and training employees, handling any data breach, and the development of policies in these areas. Our next meeting will be held, instead of on Tuesday, will be on Thursday, February 21st, which is different than our normal date. We will meet at 3:30 in the afternoon in the stage conference room here at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. The role that the auditors play is so important. Technically, towns in New York are not required to be audited, but clearly a community of this magnitude, it's only prudent that we do so. But they are also a resource. Besides, performing the actual audit, they are, at the other end of the phone when we need them for their advice, for their suggestions on matters. And I know Paula and the finance department, Suzanne, reach out to them and tap into that wealth of knowledge. So thank you for that report. Public Safety Committee.
So Public Safety met on Tuesday, the 12th, just yesterday. But before I go into sharing information about as transacted in that meeting, I'd like to acknowledge how lovely the Brighton Fire Department annual awards banquet and recognition of outgoing Chief Stephen McAdam and President Jim Quinn was on Saturday evening, this past Saturday evening. The gathering of our first responders was festive. It was warm-hearted, and you really do see the community that is built among these people who work so hard to ensure that our entire community is well cared for and safe. So it was an honor to be there and to be there with several of our electeds as well. So, and many familiar faces in the community. So yesterday, the Public Safety Committee convened. We had a guest community member who brought up the issue of traffic safety along Elmwood Avenue and the vehicles that constantly pass school buses when the arm is extended. This is a serious consideration, serious concern in the community, and especially along such a high-speed corridor as Elmwood Avenue. Chief Henderson discussed ongoing enforcement actions related to that and has also been reviewing options, including moving the school bus stop off of Elmwood Avenue, although this option is not optimal considering the student who is picked up there, and students will always be picked up along Elmwood Avenue or will live along there. Enforcement efforts will continue as time and resources allow, and Brighton Police Department will be providing updates on the number of tickets written for such violations, and they are serious violations. Commissioner Guyon will review school bus stop signage along Elmwood Avenue as well, and will modify or add signage as necessary. And we should note that I believe Supervisor Mealy was the one who noted that there's currently legislation pending in the New York State Assembly that may allow for cameras on school bus arms that would be very helpful in enforcing these violations.
Yeah, just like the red light cameras that certain municipalities have, those are only permitted in places that are, or at least they're only permitted to generate enforceable tickets in communities that the state legislature designates. There is a community in Monroe County, a school district, that has spent a fairly significant amount of money to mount. They're planning on mounting those cameras, but at this point, without state legislation, the police cannot issue tickets, even though they may generate license plate numbers. I think it's it's an idea that deserves some serious study because we know that there's a safety issue. There's a lot of safety issues right now along Elmwood Avenue, and that's one of them. And our police can't be everywhere at all times. The morning school rush is a time that they do try to have a presence in that area, but sometimes, just when you think they're going to, there's a call for service in another part of the town. So something that, I hope the state legislature, takes a serious look at, whatever the pros and cons might be.
Thank you. Brighton Volunteer Ambulance provided an update. They've had 479 calls for service in January of this year, and that volume is up notably from a thankfully slow December. They are continuing to press their social media awareness campaign for those who are medically dependent on electricity. At this time of year, power outages can be significant and harmful. So far, no one has come to BVA as a candidate for additional follow-up, but we do want to get the word out into the community that if you are dependent on an electrically powered medical device, they can take that into account and be ready to assist should there be power outage.
And it's relevant to let RG&E know, because they want to know as well when there is someone. So that's, that's also an important notification.
Brighton Volunteer Ambulance's normally scheduled spring open house will return this year. It will be on Sunday, May 19th from 1 to 4 p.m. I highly encourage folks to go out and check out the new facility, the expanded facility. It's spectacular. And the facility is much more functional than the previous smaller space. The county EMS chief were able to get a meeting with the mobile stroke unit staff from the University of Rochester. So BVA is continuing to expand and refine their life-saving skills. The EMS wants to partner on this project. Bear with me one moment. They will be formulating a training component for providers to follow safe, proper decisions and to make safe transfers of stroke patients. And let's see. I'm sorry, the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance last year transported 41 clinically indicated strokes over the course of the year. So it is a significant need for training. And they continue to search for staff. They're short on 2 night providers and 1 day provider, and they are recruiting. So spread the word amongst those with EMS skills. Brighton Fire Department gave their update, 249 calls year to date, including a recent incident that you may have seen in the news about a young boy who was trapped by a vehicle in the Linden Oaks parking lot, and thankfully the boy was released without serious injury, but a frightening circumstance. Public Works, Public Works has been handling the weather marvelously. Yeah, they also reported on progress towards sidewalk installation along French Road, the extended crosswalk to Edgewalk Crossing has achieved a New York State grant. The grant is prepared and submitted, and the work is anticipated to begin design and construction by fall of this year. Is there anything more you want to add, Mike?
No, I think, honestly, I think some of Chris's report will also pick up some of that too.
Great. And the safety concern there is, of course, children making their way to school with their families, and all of the traffic that surrounds the school at that time, especially in morning hours. Winter parking regulations are being enforced around town, and we're working on notifications and seeking collaborative solutions with area religious leaders to improve compliance with parking restriction for safe operation of snow removal equipment over religious observance days. City of Rochester Fire Department has an update for West Brighton. They recently installed a vehicle exhaust ventilation system that is similar to what operates in the rest of the Brighton Fire Department facilities, and they are going to complete the installation once the weather is better. They have to go up on the roof, and it's not accessible in this weather. There were updates on we've covered the firearm storage, French Road School Crossing, and we have learned that concerns about speed on Torrington Drive have quieted down some in the winter weather. The temporary parking restrictions on Roland Parkway that are in place in response to the construction traffic at Council Rock, where they are doing the expansion to accommodate full day K. That is working out well. The neighbors are appreciative of the assistance from the police department in enforcing the restrictions. And new matter has come up, a stop sign on Ashburn at Branford, and that will be Ashburn at Branford and Commonwealth. And after review by Commissioner Guyon, it appears that it can be taken care of with some trimming of growth in the right-of-way. And so there should be significant safety achieved there. And the scramble was also at 12 Corners, was addressed in the Community Services Committee report. So with that, the next meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be on Tuesday, March 12th at 8 a.m. In the lower conference room, and the public is welcome to attend.
Thanks, Christine, and I want to thank you as well in your Public Safety Committee chair position of serving as a liaison with us as the fire department reviews Station 3 and their group of people that they have pulled together to review their plans and hopefully, suggest and consider and evaluate all possible alternatives before coming up with a, what the future will look like for that station.
Absolutely. Resident input into those decisions is critical because it's serving the residents of the community.
Right. Yep. Thanks. Public Works, Chris.
Public Works was ably chaired by Councilmember DePonzio on February the 5th at 9 o'clock. The matters discussed there were first that the Highland Crossing Trail bids came in, and Catco was the apparent low bidder. As is not unusual, the project cost exceeds the construction budget, and the Finance Department is exploring additional funding for the project. The City of Rochester is also identifying funding to cover their portion of the project overrun. A discussion was had regarding the Edgewood no parking request, which has also been discussed here this evening, and we've set it for a public hearing. The East Avenue sidewalk connection between the work that's being done in Pittsford and connection to the sidewalk in Brighton was discussed, and whether additional funding might be available. Pittsford advises that no additional funding is available, and that there does not, the town staff has also contacted New York State Department of Transportation to investigate funding. They suggested perhaps a transportation improvement program or congestion mitigation and air quality improvement funding might be available. And Mike, have those gone out, or any hope for those?
Well, we have to wait for the application, but certainly we'll look into the applications and see if it makes sense to pursue.
And that would be connection along that high bank there, is that?
That's correct. Yeah.
It's a real impediment to making that connection, which makes all the sense in the world. Pittsburgh's going to great lengths to connect sidewalks in their portion, and we've got a very high bank and a number of very large trees.
Yeah, it's very difficult situation.
The Edgewood sidewalks were also discussed, and the formation of a sidewalk district to fund the construction from the north side of Allen's Creek Bridge to Monroe Avenue was thought to expedite its implementation. Commissioner of Public Works will prepare a letter to the New York State Department of Transportation also to request the installation of crosswalks and pedestrian crossings at Edgewood and Monroe Avenue intersections. The community choice aggregation status was discussed, and the town is nearing completion of its RFQ, as has been reported. And a comprehensive plan website was discussed, and the town is reviewing alternatives for maintenance of that website. The next meeting will be March 5th at 9 o'clock a.m. In the downstairs meeting room, and the public is invited to attend. Please.
Please indeed. Thank you, Chris. Moving to new business, Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $5,508,844.39. Notable claims include American Rock Salt in the amount of $63,657.83 for road salt purchased via New York State contract pricing. Also to the Brighton Fire District in the amount of $4,885,468.57, representing the final payment of 2019 property taxes that the town collected for the fire district and passed through. Also to MVP Healthcare in the amount of $252,983.42, representing February 2019 premiums for active employees' health insurance, which is reimbursed in part by contribution from employees. Also to Temple Brith Kodesh in the amount of $1,000 for a facility rental fee for Police Department for worship security training, which was actually funded by a generous grant from one of our residents, and to Van Bortle Ford in the amount of $50,300.15 for the purchase of a Ford F-350 small dump truck for the sewer department. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Christine.
So, on the matter of authorizing an amendment of current agreements with tow vendors to reflect new towing rates set by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, I move to adopt the resolution prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion? It's not an unusual thing, and we do follow the rates as set by the Sheriff's Department. Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jason.
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to renew an agreement with Electronic Field Productions, Incorporated, for the provision of video production and cable television management services in an amount not to exceed $52,000. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And this is no change from the previous year. They do a great job. Thank you, guys. And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Chris.
Next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Mayor Hardware INC for provision of hardware supplies and tools at a 15% discount off public prices. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Again, this is something we do each year for routine hardware purchases. Mayor was the only responding firm, and their 15% discount from their pricing is the same discount that they offered last year. Can I have we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jason.
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize a bid award to Concrete Applied Technologies Corp., DBA CATCO, for the Highland Crossing Trail project in an amount not to exceed $1,812,973.90, and authorize the supervisor to amend the cost-sharing agreement with the City of Rochester to reflect actual prices bid. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is I think, another great trail project. It's one we've been working on for quite a long time. There were a lot of complications to this project, many of which were caused by the fact that it is a multi-jurisdictional city-town, but an awful lot of them were just the nature of the project, land acquisition requirements, and otherwise, because the city's been a good partner on getting this done. As was alluded earlier, this is somewhat over the anticipated grant amount. So both the city and the town of Brighton have, developed financing arrangements to cover that overage, and a lot of that really is a function of the fact that the pricing estimates do date back quite a long time, given the time that it's taken to get to this point. The bids were pretty well clustered, so I think, and I know you've said that the DOT, Mike, has worked with CATCO, or Concrete Applied Technologies Corp. And by the way, don't let the name fool you. This is not a concrete trail, although some of the portion in the city will be on concrete, and there will be a little bit of sidewalk expansion in Brighton along Elmwood Avenue to make it wide enough for multimodal use, but particularly the Brighton piece will be constructed not of paved surface, but again of a stone dust surface similar to what we have on the very popular Brickyard Trail. So we're looking to move forward on this and get construction started hopefully within the next month or so. We have that motion and second. Further discussion, anyone? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. And Jason, why don't you do the next one
Yes,
as well?
the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to opt into New York State legislation allowing temporary extension of deadline on real property tax payments by federal employees impacted by federal government shutdown. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And just to clarify, actually, this is not authorizing the supervisor to do it. This is actually opting in as the town to this new legislation, which just went into effect on February 1st. And I believe that Brighton is the first town, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say in the state, to opt in. What this is doing is waiving interest on real property tax bills for a short period of time for those federal employees who were either furloughed or required to work without pay, and gives them, now that they are back on the payroll, a little bit of extra time to put the money together to come in and pay their 2019 town and county tax bill without interest.
And kudos to Dan for identifying this opportunity. Obviously, kudos to the state legislature and the governor for really moving that legislation through very quickly in response to the shutdown that really negatively impacted an awful lot of federal workers, probably a lot more in some other locales than ours, but we do know that it will benefit at least some Brighton residents. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye, and we got one more very financial one here, budget transfers. Jason.
All right. Next matter seeks to approve 2018 budget transfers and appropriations to reflect actual activity relative to the 2018 amended budget. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And attached to the correspondence are a whole list of those. This will probably not quite be the last you hear of the 2018 budget, but pretty close to it.
I'm hoping so. This is what I like to call housekeeping. And we are feeling like we've got most of the 2018 claims processed. So hopefully there will not be but a couple of more, if any. So.
Good. Thanks, Paula. We have that motion and second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Robin.
The next matter seeks to receive and file a negative declaration for the French Road Sidewalk project and authorize the town board to be lead agency under the State of New York Environmental Quality Review Act and approve said negative declaration. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
We've identified the south side of French Road between Edgewood Avenue and that big 90-degree curve where it hits the canal trail as an area where sidewalks are a real priority. It's very close, of course, to French Road School. There are a lot of kids that live not only in those apartments on the south side of French Road, but also on, as French Road loops around, on the west side of French Road in Eastbrook, that this will help them walk safely to school. And we're looking at a couple of grants. We don't know for sure, but this is part of what we have to do successfully apply for those grants, comply with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and that's what we will be doing here. So we have that motion and second. Further discussion? Mike, did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you covered it all, Bill.
All right. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Robin, why don't you do the next one as well?
Sure. The next matter seeks to appoint Brian Lynch and Nathaniel Gibbs to the Sustainability Oversight Committee. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Thank you, everybody that applied. And as this, we always say, the Sustainability Oversight Committee, they're really, they're some smart folks. They really know the areas of sustainability, which is a priority. It's one of what I like to talk about a lot, one of Brighton's core values. And so we appreciate the work that they all do. We have that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. And Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to appoint Andrea Koch and Joan Swanekamp to the Brighton Memorial Library Board of Trustees. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Again, thanks to our library board for the service that they render. Jason, you are the liaison to the library board.
And what an impressive group that came out.
Oh, yeah.
Very difficult.
Yes.
It's very difficult, but we know who you are now, and you're not going to be able to hide. We'll find another job for you. Very impressive people.
All of these committee appointments are difficult.
Yeah, they
are. We have always have a very impressive pool of candidates, and it's hard to just pick one or two.
We'll find a spot for them.
That's true. Good point. Good point.
And do all librarians live in the town of Brighton? Now, that says something, that so many librarians live in Rochester. Or in Brighton, excuse me.
Great. Okay, we have that motion and second. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, I want to second what Christine said a moment ago about the fire dinner. Chief McAdam, who became chief pretty close in time to when I became supervisor 7 years ago, has been a great partner, and those agencies work together just in a remarkable way. When the need is greatest, they respond, and they are outstanding. Thank you to them. Thank you to outgoing President Jim Quinn, who not only has a lengthy experience with the Brighton Fire Department, is a former chief of the former West Brighton Fire Department. So thank you, Jim, for all that you've done in safety and all the people that were there. And you know, we heard, there were a lot of people mention this, but this is so true. The families of the firefighters, and again, the families of our emergency service providers. We had a very serious fire a couple years ago on Christmas Eve. There were a bunch of Christmas Eve dinners that went cold that night because of the response, not only in that case from our department, but from others. And that's the price that family members of volunteers and paid staff can play, and so we're really grateful to that. Also want to call attention to this mug. I always have a mug up here because you heard me coughing. It's nice to have a drink of water. This mug came from today's Susan B. Anthony luncheon. Judy, I know you were there. This actually, the hashtag today was Susan B. 199 because the 15th is the 199th anniversary of Susan B. Anthony's birth. But this coffee cup, we're already getting excited about next year and Susan B. Anthony's 200th birthday. And I've spoken a little bit with Susan B. Anthony herself who lives in Brighton under the assumed name of Barbara Blaisdell. And Barbara is very interested, as is Deborah Hughes at the Susan B. Anthony House, of making sure there really is a big community celebration of Susan B. Anthony's 200th birthday. But some really very powerful presentations. The keynote spoke, she is, wow, she wears a lot of hats. She's a PhD, runs an archive program at UMass, and spoke a lot about a topic that's had some discussion over the last couple of years, sort of the intersectional intersection of Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony, and of issues of race and gender in general, and very timely, very well thought out, and also very beautifully and personal responses, comments, in addition to the great job that Deanna Dewberry from Channel 10 did as the MC of the event. So it's something that I try to go to every year. And so, Susan B., we're ready for you, 200. That's all that I have. Matters of the attorney.
Supervisor, I do not have anything for the public session of this meeting. I do have about 3 litigation matters I would like to take up with the board in executive session following this meeting.
Sounds good. And we do have an executive session already planned to discuss some employment matters, so we'll add litigation to that list. Matters of the town clerk?
Just want to restate again that we talked about earlier, looking at that Sunday, March 3rd at 2 p.m. For that Be Smart presentation. So I hope anybody who's interested can make it. The besmart.org is the website, and you can go through the Moms Demand Action, or Every Town for Gun Violence is the other group that sponsors that program. And I think I'm very excited to be able to do it. We've been talking to Sharon for a while about finding a time to do it, and I think with the bill that Chris presented, it's the perfect time to push that forward, and we'll capitalize on this momentum.
Great. And that'll be at the farmers market?
It's going to be in the multi-purpose room at Brookside during when the market is meeting. We've also been talking with Sue Gardner-Smith, who's very interested in or just wanted to make sure that she was along with that as well, and they've started a conversation about tabling with moms at future summer market in particular events as well, which I was very excited about. And just the last thing I'll say is, along with momentum, tonight while we were meeting, the House Judiciary Committee passed the universal background check legislation that they're working on, so it'll move forward to the House floor. Certainly faces an uphill battle in the other house of the legislature in D.C. and certainly at the White House, but I think it's an important step to move forward.
It is an important step because it means that the dialogue, public dialogue on that, what I certainly consider to be a very, very important. And again, we talked about common sense, universal background checks. Universal and background checks are important enough that they are mandated in many circumstances. If they make sense in many circumstances, they should make sense in gun sales. They should make gun shows. They should make sense in some of the other settings where background checks are not currently required. So good that important discussion continues. Thank you for your update. Matters of the board.
I'll send.
Oh, good. Okay. We do,
Yeah, we'll update.
We've got time for all of our spring events coming up. Yeah, absolutely. Hearing none, then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment of particular people and matters of litigation?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Thank you. I don't anticipate that we will be coming back into public session afterwards. So I want to thank everybody, especially our RIT students, for being here. I hope you enjoyed the meeting. Thanks for sticking it out to the end. And our next town board meeting will be February 27th at 7 p.m. right here at Brighton Town Hall. Have a good evening, everybody.